This episode of the Restoration Today podcast is brought to you by Cotality. Restoration moves fast, and so should your technology. Cotality Restoration brings job data, communication, documentation, and reporting together in one place. Less chaos, more control, better outcomes. Cotality Restoration, elevate every job. Find out more at cotality.com. Welcome back to the CNR podcast booth at the Cotality INTRConnect event. It's been a long day already. It's 3 p.m., but it's been a great day. The keynote was amazing. And so I'm excited to be joined by Selma Hepp, who's the Senior Vice President and Chief Economist for Cotality. I had hoped to do a podcast with her last year, and with some rescheduling stuff, it didn't work out. So I'm very excited to have you with me today to chat with you. You've been on my bucket list to have on the show for a while. Honestly, MC can echo that. So thanks for being here.
You're the only person that I'm on their bucket list. But
I doubt that, but yes, welcome in. So for people that don't know you, give a quick intro of yourself, your background, and your role at Cotality.
Yeah, so I'm a chief economist at Cotality. I have a group of economists with me that are actually the brain behind all of this. I just sit there and, I'm just on the bucket list. They do all the interesting stuff. But, group of economists are great folks. And what our goal with Cotality data is to dig deeper and understand what are the trends in the housing market, insurance space, economy, macroeconomic trends. My entire work history has been as an economist in housing market, just from different perspectives. Now I'm more on the data side. I used to be more in real estate services with real estate brokerage, with Department of Housing and Urban Development, with the National Association of Realtors, California Association of Realtors. So a pretty wide range of activities within the housing space.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you for being here. So I know that you had a session this morning that was right after the keynote, which was amazing. And there are a lot of different things kind of impacting our industry today. So give kind of a high level view of what you talked about this morning and what's kind of impacting our industry as a whole, the whole insurance ecosystem right now.
Yeah. So, my objective is to show people how macroeconomic trends are impacting the housing market, insurance, etc. And so I focus a lot on what are the macroeconomic trends. It just so happened to collide with or coincide with the talk on AI. And AI is a big talk of this conference, and it has actually been of every conference that I've been to recently. But AI has had a significant impact on the U.S. economy over the last year. We have seen a massive surge in AI, which has actually been the main support for economic activity in the US, and that's likely to continue. Now, what we worry about as economists is, if this massive investment is leading into overvaluation of AI-driven companies.
Yes.
We do see the Cape-Shiller valuation, which is a key measure of market value, reach historic highs. It's highs that's been since the year 2000. So naturally, now we are worried about potential bust,
Yes.
collapse. If you do see some crack in AI investment or boost in economic activity driven by AI, that can impact your average consumers, because your average consumers are invested in the stock market.
Yes.
So equities, rising equities have boosted their wealth, and it can equally take away from their wealth. And so we are keeping a close eye on that at the moment. The other thing that's very important for housing ecosystem in general is how the labor market is doing. Are people employed? People need to be employed in order to buy homes, repair them, renovate them, whatever the case may be. And so with the weaknesses in labor markets that we've been observing over the last year, the question is, do we, does the floor underneath us now fall out, or do we just see a slower rate of job additions in the U.S.? And we do believe that at this point, we're just seeing slower rate of job additions, and that rate of unemployment is actually going to remain about steady where it is right now, maybe increase a little bit, right? And again, it's important because it drives consumer spending,
So on the AI note that you were starting off with, kind of what do you think that things are going to change? Is the floor going to kind of drop out a little bit? And I'm curious if there's any like historical data toward that, maybe the dot-com boom or anything that's happened in our past that gives you kind of an eye toward what might happen with AI?
Yeah, I mean, naturally, because the dot-com was the last episode that's very similar to today, that's why we are worried about a collapse similar to that one. Now, it's a very different environment now than it was back then. In dot-com, it was very much, space that nobody knew really, didn't understand well. It was online. We didn't know what online even was at the time, whereas we're now seeing some very real productivity gains from implementation of AI, especially in the workspace, in the workflow of the industry we serve. Both you and I, we see some sizable gains in productivity because of that. So I think the potentials are there. I think maybe, there's going to be some fallout, but nowhere near the .com, nowhere near.
Okay. All right, let's talk about tariffs. I don't think we can talk about economy stuff without talking about tariffs. So what kind of impact are you seeing that have specifically on our space in the industry?
Yeah, people are very worried, or have been very worried since the Liberation Day, which is April 1st last year, that we're going to see surge in costs of inputs into construction. Something similar to what we saw between the year 2020 and 2020, so during the pandemic. We're seeing some slight increases now. In other words, inflation has picked up a little bit by about 0.5 percentage point to 1 percentage point, but it's nowhere near that inflation rate that we saw during then. Back then we were looking at 6, 7, 9% increase in costs year over year. Now we are at 2 to 3%, closer to 3% increase in those costs. So yes, we will likely see some more cost pressures, but again, nowhere near where we were during the pandemic.
Do you have any advice or resources that you point contractors to, maybe specifically where they're trying to keep an eye on what's happening in the economy, maybe specifically so they understand materials pricing, so that it helps them price their jobs and things like that? Any specific resources that you like to point people toward? I know Cotality does do releases, but anything?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we do have a construction bulletin that we do quarterly, and that one captures really well what's happening on the ground. There are naturally other resources. As an economist, I rely on a lot of government source data, such as producer price index. Within the producer price index, you can look at individual components. You can just focus on repair services alone. You can focus on labor costs within construction industry. So there are actually a lot of resources if you just look. If you just go ask ChatGPT.
Yes.
AI.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to think of what else we should talk about. So I was thinking about mergers and acquisitions are huge, and I know that this might be a little bit outside, but mergers and acquisitions are still a huge conversation in the restoration space specifically. And I know valuations have changed and multiples and things like that. So I'm kind of curious what you're seeing in the mergers and acquisitions space now. Like, are companies getting valued differently because of how claims behavior and stuff has changed? Claim volume is down, but the amount is up, and insurance, there's just so many things happening. So what do you see kind of in that space?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not so familiar with this, but what I would say is that there's definitely a trend towards more mergers and acquisitions. I think the gains to be had from streamlining a lot of these processes, in addition of data inputs. Data is actually, can be quite expensive, but having a good data can make or break your business. And so investing in the data is one of the drivers behind those mergers and acquisitions.
Yes. Do you have any kind of myths that you see contractors believing in, of like, this is so, there you must, based on your face? Any myths where you're like, that is not true, stop believing that, let me like course correct this myth that you're believing about the economy or the state of our industry or anything like that?
Well, no, actually, I don't have a good answer for that, but I was laughing because, so what we are dealing with in the U.S. economy right now is this very bifurcated consumer. We call it K-shaped economy as economists, but it's this huge difference between how lower income households are performing and how higher income households are performing. Okay. And so what my giggle there was about is that I hear a lot of different perspectives from people about how the economy is doing. So I will, be at the grocery store. Maybe not a good example, but say I'm at the doctor's office, I'm talking to somebody, and they ask what do I do, and I said I'm an economist, and they're like, well, can you fix this economy? This economy is so horrible, and that's been the case from majority of consumers for a long, for a few years now. But in fact, with the topic that we started off with, is economy is not actually doing that bad. It's just not helping everyone equally. And so that's where that divergence happens. And so you have to be conscious about who is your client, and so, this bifurcation across clients is very important to understand.
That's really interesting. So K-shaped economy?
K-shaped economy.
So literally like the letter K?
Yeah.
So you can picture people top and then...
So it's a letter K on the reason for this description is everybody sort of started off from the same point at the onset of the pandemic, but the upper income household have seen such strong increases in wealth. To give you example in numbers, for example, the bottom 50% of the income distribution only saw a $3 trillion increase in their wealth in the last 5-year period. The top 10% saw a $45 trillion increase. So that's why they're going up, they're doing better, whereas the lower income households are stagnating, essentially.
Oh, that's really interesting. And
very realistic to us.
Yes, so many directions we could go with that one. But okay, Selma, anything that you want to add before we wrap it up? Any final comments for contractors that they should know? Final words of wisdom. I know you've got all of your notes, so
I know I'm desperately
graphs, and
I'm desperately looking for what to say here. But I think, to me, this is a lot what I talked about during my presentation is just how much we have to worry about uncertainty, because it's been with us for so long, but now that's become a baseline. But there is sense of improvement in the air, both in the turnover in the housing market, both in terms of the cost of borrowing. So consumers can borrow at cheaper rates, meaning they can repair their homes, they can maintain their homes, they can, invest in their homes. And so I think, to me, I have, I'm tilting more towards a positive outlook than worrying about everything there is to worry about at the moment.
Yes, that's good. Positive outlook. I like that. That's how I like to live too. So Selma, thank you so much for this. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time and your expertise. And we'll have to do it again, hopefully next year.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
For more Restoration Today and the latest news, visit our website, cnrmagazine.com, and find the latest episodes of the Restoration Today podcast on your favorite podcasting platform.